And here we are. You're listening to Forever West Old Time Radio Hour. My name is James Townsend, and with me, as always, is Doss Boot. And we are coming at you today with part 2 of our series on Deputy U.S. Marshal William H. Carr. Doss, how you doing, man?
Good, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. We got a lot of ground to cover today.
Absolutely, because this is one of those ones where we double teamed on, and I've got this angle, you've got that angle. Not to mention the fact that we've got a few other William Carrs, that
Oh, yeah.
relative to the same timelines in a way, and you went down a rabbit hole and you were sending me stuff going, you're not going to believe this, but here's what I found. And then the post I did the other day in Forever West about William Carr, the Missouri farm laborer who very unfortunately and sickening drowns his 3-year-old daughter, is hanged in Liberty, Missouri in public. It's the first ever recorded, like filmed execution, accordingly, supposedly. The film, of course, is known as now as a lost film, but the photos I found are supposed to be from that film. So interesting too, because it was just like, whoa, wait a minute. Obviously a different William Carr. The timelines aren't, the same, and when the ages aren't the same. So, but it's interesting too, because it's just the same name. And then you're sending me stuff about these other William Carrs. So yeah, I feel like we've got to really make this all fluid and connect. And I figure we'll rock and roll.
Yeah.
So last week, we made it as far as September 12th, 1889, the Wichita Weekly Journal, and that was the article that said, a brave officer, Deputy U.S. Marshal Carr, and his record for 1 year, and that was the photo sketch of him that we shared, and that was where we stopped. Okay, so same thing. Lots of, because I'm sure you came across the same thing, lots of very simple ones. Deputy Marshal W.H. Carr arrived in the city here today, right? I found at least 9 or 10 where it was just him and another deputy marshal checking into a hotel, right?
Yep.
There's tons of those. So we're going to really hit up the fat meat parts of what's been going on in this guy's life. So again, like Swain, he is all over the territory, Indian territory, making lots of arrests, and just kind of continues. He does good things. January 15th, 1890, the Galveston Daily News out of Galveston, Texas, reported that Deputy Marshal W.H. Carr and posse arrested 3 men who had been wanted for robbing the ticket and express office at Wynwood, Indian Territory. That would have been along the Santa Fe Railroad. So it said the men were identified by a station agent Lane, who they knocked out with a pistol whip to the skull.
That's right.
And he was able to identify them. So there's that.
He even pointed out the one who did the hitting.
Yeah. That guy right there, man.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep, guy hit me in the back of the head or whatever. Yeah, so that was interesting. The Norman, and I like this one, and I think you should have this one. I sent you so much stuff, I know. The Norman Democratic Topic, Thursday, January 30th, 1890. It is a list of the U.S. Marshals Directory, and on that list, we see a W.H. Carr. He is listed as deputy for District of Kansas, East District of Texas, and West District of Arkansas, which at that time was Purcell, Indian Territory. Right below him is listed Deputy Marshal John Swain, and right below John Swain is none other than Fred T. Waite, former regulator and legitimate pal of Billy the Kid. And when I say legitimate, I say legitimate. Someone who spent time with this young man a few years, rode with him, killed people alongside of him. Not someone who was born 50 years after he died and then told
Right.
stories like, oh, yeah, he came to our house all the time. That kind of stuff, because it exists everywhere.
This guy here, Fred Waite, under John Swain's name, this guy was at the Brady shooting. I mean, this guy, wow.
Yeah,
How
Brady
cool is
shooting. Blazers Mill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, man? It's
friends
yeah.
with Henry Brown, had their pictures taken together.
Yeah, him and Henry. So that was another cool find. And actually, I'd probably come across this one doing the John Swain thing, but again, didn't know who W.H. Carr was at the time.
Yeah.
So pretty cool to see that. And yeah, that right there proves his
And
3 district commission there.
I just noticed this up here. You'll see W.W. Ansley.
Ainsley, yeah.
I guarantee
that's got to be the same guy, right?
Later. Yeah, we'll see that name later.
Yeah, that is the same guy.
Yep.
Okay. So pretty cool. Fred T. Waite on there with Swain and W.H. Carr. So we're moving on. Now, this one I did send you. We're going to find this one. This is the one that I sent you where he is filed a claim, right?
Right, yeah.
Notice of publication involving civil case number 607. And I'll give you a second. I know you got that one because we talked about this. I definitely would love to hear your opinion on this, anybody else's opinion. Okay. January 30th, same day as the Marshal's directive was listed, but a different newspaper article, the Muskogee Phoenix out of Muskogee, Oklahoma, posted a notice of publication involving civil case number 607. This was in regards to a claim filed by W.H. Carr stating that several of his belongings, including a Winchester rifle, a shotgun, a team of horses, a set of harnesses, and a wagon. It was alleged that his property was seized by the United States government based on violations of statutes 2139 and 2140. These violations forfeited the property to the United States government for use. Yeah. I didn't go the level to go, okay, what are the statutes 2139, 2140? Because it was 1890.
Right.
I'm like, that's going to be a big path. And so I didn't go down it.
Yeah.
But
you can only guess, but it would be cool if one of our listeners, either live or down the road, could leave a comment about what their take on this is, because it says one W.H. Carr, informer by the attorney for the said court. A libel of information has been filed. I don't even know what that phrase means. Usually libel is about, talking smack against someone or something like that. And then seized by the United States, forfeited to the use of the United States. Because of a violation, and praying that the said property may be condemned as forfeited. It's just it's language I'm definitely not used to seeing, and can't really make too much from it.
Unfortunately, that's what I came to as well. I'm like, what could he have done for them to seize this type of property? You know what I mean? His rifle, a shotgun, his horses, the harnesses that go on the horses, and the entire wagon. Was he committing a criminal act? Like, I don't know. It's so weird. So odd.
Did they need it? For a bigger raid or something? It's like a cop who's lost his car or his bike, and he in a movie, he'll grab a driver out of some car passing by and say, this is I'm seizing this in the name of the police. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know.
Like in movies when somebody's just driving down the street and a cop sticks the gun out towards the windshield. I'm taking your car, please get out, and they throw him out.
I wonder if it was something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's odd, and also I was going to say more odd that we couldn't find anything else that was a continuation of this or anything preemptively that would have led up to this decision being made and this article. But then again, as we have discovered, same thing with Swain. Anybody, right? You find an article that you would think there's going to be a second part of this. There's going to be a conclusion because they're talking like they've already spoken about it, right? We've encountered that so many times and they just never
All the
mention anything
time.
ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really odd. And that's what I found with this one. Like, why is there nothing else? But again, intriguing because to me, it definitely sounds like he was doing something he shouldn't be doing.
Right. That's our bill.
Right? At least in their eyes. In their
Yeah.
eyes. I'm not sure. And for them not to state why those, just says, well, he violated these statutes. Okay. Why can't you list what the statutes were?
Right.
I
Or
would sure
follow
like
up,
to know.
Did he
Yeah,
win? Did he
give us
lose?
something else. Okay. And I'm doing this straight as a timeline chronological order. February 20th, 1890. The Norman Democratic Topic reported that on February 17th, deputies W.H. Carr, Deputy W.H. Carr arrived in Paris, Texas with prisoners E. Everhart and Ben Cornelius, both charged with arson. It also stated that 75 miles from Ardmore, Indian Territory, while Deputy Carr and posse attempted to serve warrants on two men named Will Brummett and Jim Horbolt, both wanted for murder. A riding gunfight ensued. Brummett was shot in the back. He separated from his horse and ran into the nearby woods where he was not located, and Jim Horbolt outran the posse and escaped. That
Yeah.
was one of the ones where I found where he got into a little bit of a skiff with somebody and did not walk away with the prisoners. That does happen occasionally, where I've read a few where they just decided to give up the chase. Either the horses were really getting run over, they didn't have enough supplies to continue the search, the ride to continue to go. But it's interesting that they didn't find the guy in the woods that got shot in the back, and the other guy just outran them.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, he's covering lots of ground here. But it's also interesting too. January 30th is when his civil publication, case thing is posted. And then not even a month later, he's out there arresting, getting in a gunfight.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't lose his commission. He's out there doing his thing.
Right. I was gonna say, so whatever that civil publication thing, them, obtaining his property by forfeit. That's what I was thinking the same thing. Did he do something that would have been able to, revoke his commission or suspend him or something like that? Clearly not. Clearly not. Yeah. Okay. October 14th, 1890, W.H. Carr marries Miss Eva Black in Oklahoma City. The event took place in the parlor of a hotel. The articles did not mention the hotel, with family and friends and hotel guests. And one part that I put in here in parentheses because it's part of the actual article, the publication for the marriage. It says, Mr. Carr is a very clever man, and his wife is one of the most handsomest young ladies in this vicinity. They will live in Lexington, and we bespeak for them only the pleasant and good things in this life. The Evening Gazette, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, October 20th, 1890. Very interesting. She is the most handsomest. Bespeak.
What a foreshadowing there, that last sentence, bespeak for them only the pleasant and good things in this life.
Very interesting indeed. Okay.
Yeah, don't let the Evening Gazette ever wish you well. That's a curse.
All right. Okay. So family time starts. Birth of son, Tyne, Tine, Tyne J. Charles Carr, born May 10th, 1891 in Lexington, McLean County, Oklahoma. So first son. Now, first episode, we talked about what he could possibly be doing, saving all this money that probably not a lot of money, but he's covering a lot of ground. We talk about so many arrests, and we figure, these guys were not making much, a little bit on the mileage, here and there. So that's why they had to record everything, but I feel as if, I don't know about you, when Swain, not to keep going back there, but we kept finding things relative with Mrs. Swain once they were married.
Right.
Right? She's doing things in the community. They talk about her as if she is one of them and everyone knows her. I don't know about
Mhm.
you. I didn't see anything like that when it comes to W.H. Carr and Mrs.
Nothing.
Carr. Nothing. So
Nothing. Yeah.
I wonder if that was the plan, for him to just continue and do a business and continue to do what he ends up doing instead of being at home more as as the children come.
Right.
It seems like he stays away a lot more,
Yeah.
honestly. So I sent you this one. It is an advert. June 11th, 1891, the Lexington Leader posts an advert for the Fashion Saloon, now open. Proprietor W.H. Carr, Lexington, Oklahoma. So here's his first business venture that we mentioned that is going to have a very interesting end. So there you
Yeah.
go, the Fashion Saloon, Lexington. And you can see what he's offering there in the bottom, kind of a nice little sales pitch.
Mhm. And if you look up, I looked into his wife's father. So Carr's father-in-law, I think his name was
Mhm.
Richard Black, I believe. And that guy was a agent for Anheuser-Busch.
Really?
And yes, and he was a big shot in the area. And um, I believe that he was eventually a business partner of Carr's. So he provided the drink.
Hmm. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's a nice little tidbit on the side.
Yeah.
Huh. Agent for Anheuser-Busch.
Yep. And
Well, I
around
guess
this time, the World's Fair was going on,
right.
close to, you know, gosh, I can't remember, 1893 maybe, was it? Or 18 something like
Yeah.
that. Anyway, his father-in-law, um, brought some Budweiser back from that and was selling it in these clear fancy bottles from the World's Fair and all that.
Wow. The World's Fair, that was Chicago, right?
Yeah, mhm.
Yeah, because it was H. Holmes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, that
I'm
book,
actually yeah, I'm reading that right now, Devil in the
Devil
White
in the White
City.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
It's a
thought that was, ironic that as I was researching this guy that came
Yeah,
up because I'm right
that
there.
is
Yeah.
that's quite a book, my friend. I
It's a
read it
good
about
book. Yeah.
yeah, I read it about 7 or 8 years ago. I think I still have it somewhere. I got a lot of
Yep.
books, but I
Yeah.
do believe that is one that I read and got to the end and go, yeah, you're probably gonna want to read this again in like another 5 or 6 years.
Absolutely. I'm about
Usually
halfway through it.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually I get through fiction or historical nonfiction, whatever, and I just know by the end of it, like, yeah, I'm probably not going to need to revisit this sometime soon or ever.
Mhm.
I make that decision. But that was one that it's a page turner,
It
because
is.
it's got the history in it too, and when you blend the things that are going on at the World's Fair, this huge event, and then
Yeah.
not very far away. Well, it was less
That's
than a few
it.
blocks, right? Where
Absolutely.
he
You could
lived.
I believe you could see Jackson Park from where H. Holmes
Yeah.
was constructing his hotel. Did they
So
really,
scary.
Misty? Misty James says that, they made a series from it. I didn't know that.
Really?
I'd like to find out more about that. Get us the deets, Misty.
Absolutely. That is something I would watch.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he's got the Fashion Saloon. Now here we go. You've got some information on this, and I've got some stuff, and we're gonna roll. March 25th, 1892, the Minco Minstrel out of Minco, Oklahoma, a special correspondence from Purcell, Indian Territory, that the fire at the Fashion Saloon last Saturday in Lexington was of incendiary origin. I can never say that word properly.
Incendiary.
Incendiary origin. Okay. The saloon keeper, W.H. Carr, hotel keeper, W.W. Ainsley, and
Yep.
Charles and George Elkins have been arrested, charged with arson and murder. That is because a young man by the name of Benjamin Emerson Montgomery was in the hotel and burned to death in the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you had said that you had read. Now, were they accusing Carr of setting the fire on purpose, because I didn't, because there's the next thing, right? The
Right.
coroners, the indictments for the coroner, the guy who was the head of the coroner jury, and them who were the members of the coroner's jury. And we'll read that. But I was trying to find in anything that I read in regards to the fire that he was being charged with setting it on fire himself. I couldn't find
Yeah.
anything like that.
So it was kind of like a joint prosecution. They arrested W.H. Carr, W.W. Ainsley, George Elkin, and another guy named C.E. Elkins. And I don't believe, I assumed they were brothers, but I don't think they were. Um,
I'm
and
wondering that too, right? One of them is spelled with S and the other one is spelled
yeah,
without the S. Yeah, I
consistently
saw that.
too. Yeah.
I thought they were
And
brothers.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, yeah, because I actually looked into one. I looked into CE Charles Enoch Elkins, and he's throughout the decades a businessman there. But the
Yeah.
George Elkins, as we'll talk about later, kind of disappears as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a fire, and they inspect it, and they come to the conclusion that it was started nefariously. And of course, you wonder that anyway as you read a lot of these reports of the fire. It says they
Yeah.
all had insurance. And so
Yeah.
that makes you think like, okay, well, they're all insured pretty well to this. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's not surprising. But yeah,
Well,
they were all kind of charged together.
right. Well, it's interesting because it was open for barely a year before it burned down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, it does seem rather
And it was
odd and
Ainsley's
suspicious.
hotel adjoining.
Yeah.
And as we saw
So
on that roster, Ainsley and Carr were both marshals. And one article said that all these guys were marshals at one time.
right. I don't know if the Elkins were marshals though. I'm not sure. We have to
Yeah.
actually look a little bit more in them. That's very curious. Okay, so yeah, September 23rd, 1892. So 4 or 5 months later, Purcell Register, September 23rd, 1892. Suit has been instituted in the district court against Justice of the Peace Mosley, acting coroner, and the members of the coroner's jury who sat upon the remains of Benjamin Emerson Montgomery, who burned in a fire here last February. In parentheses, I put March. It's actually March. And Charles Elkins. So Carr and Charles Elkins stood trial and were released. The other two men, at the time that article was printed on September 23rd, George Elkins and W.W. Ainsley were currently on trial, but they would also be acquitted.
Yeah, and
So
again, there's
all
not a
four of them
lot of
acquitted.
follow-up. There's not a lot of follow-up on this.
No, as
Um,
of right, how it started.
yeah.
Was there some kind of indication that are like, okay, we think the owners did this, and here's why? I didn't see any of that
Right.
either. And then once
But
the fire's done and they get acquitted, it's like it never gets mentioned again.
but here's the funny part. What I loved about this is that this article here is them actually suing the coroner and the coroner's jury for saying they started the fire. And
Oh, okay.
let's see here. Uh, the result of the two acquittals is a heavy damage suit against the acting coroner and his jurors. Carr instituted a lawsuit against the coroner and the coroner's jury. Why such an action should be taken against the coroner's jury when the indictments were rendered by the grand jury is more than an unprejudiced mind can conjure. And at the end, it's,
Wow.
however, I'm told that no member of the coroner's jury is losing sleep over the case. And indeed, it did go to the court and they tossed it out. So Carr
Yeah.
actually sued them for a
For
certain
saying he started
amount.
the fire.
Yeah, and somehow it involved him getting $800 out of a safe and all this stuff, but there was no way that anybody was going to rule in his favor for that money.
No, I saw the thing about the safe too, and I was trying to put it all together. Like, what is
Yeah.
going on here, dude? What did they do? But very interesting. And again, either way, it's quite a turn from being a reliable deputy U.S. Marshal with an
Yeah.
extensive arrest record, and it's just a quick turn of behavior of just why were they in that situation even to begin with, right? Like you have to like someone clearly started that fire, you
Yeah.
know.
Here it is in that other article. He was suing them partly because he had damaged a safe to break it open and get $800 out of it. What in the world?
So the fire was like actively burning, and he broke in and got one there so he could get the $800 out of the safe while it was burning.
Either that or maybe the fire damaged the safe so far beyond the ability to open
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah.
It's just nuts.
Uh,
The trial of the coroner's jury.
right? That sounds so crazy when you read it out loud.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right. So we got a fire, and then we got some other stuff coming up that's going to even be more interesting. Okay. October 1st, 1892, Lee Hardwick Carr, born in Lexington, McLean County, Oklahoma, just like his brother. This was printed on October 7th in the Purcell Register. Okay, here we go. 2 years later, April 8th, 1894, the Daily Oklahoman is going to report the first account of the attempted murder of Deputy Marshal W.H. Carr.
Yeah.
Here we go. Again, it's more paraphrased to the point. The article is very long. The account comes from his brother-in-law, George Hill. That was his brother-in-law. During the day on April 7th, 1894, Carr received a warning that members of the Dalton gang were coming to Violet Springs to kill him because he apparently had a warrant for one of them. But in a later newspaper article, it stated that it was revenge for arresting George Bitter Creek
Thorn.
Newcomb
Yeah.
sometime before. Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly. Either way, they were coming to kill him. 7 p.m., Bill Dalton himself and George Bitter Creek Newcomb, alias the Slaughter Kid. They entered the store wearing overcoats. They purchased provisions, and during the process, Carr recognized one of them, most likely the one he arrested, pulls a revolver from behind the counter, tells them to put their hands up. Dalton is the first one to shoot. Dalton's first shot goes through Carr's wrist and into his abdomen, coming out the back. As they run from the store, even though he is bleeding profusely and limping, almost crawling on the floor, he fires at least 5 shots at them, and he does hit George Newcomb. Doesn't kill either one of them, but he did hit Newcomb. So the account also stated that Mrs. Eva Carr and young Lee Carr were actually in the next room and just missed being hit by the flying bullets. The report said Carr had a 1 in 10 chance of living. However, by July, he was up and back to work and even took a trip to Norman, Oklahoma, as reported on July 20th, 1894 in the Norman transcript.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah, dude, it's nuts. And he got shot more than once, but the first shot goes through his wrist, in his abdomen, out his back. I mean, that one right there probably just, could have taken everything out of his fight anyway. I mean,
Right.
He was very lucky, very lucky.
And even now, I'm not too sure what went down or who all was there. The newspapers, there's not 1 or 2 newspapers that give the same account. And
Yeah,
even when you
I
read
know.
modern books on the history of the Dalton gang or the Doolin gang,
Yeah.
they have varied accounts. But the first account I ever found said it was Bill Dalton and Bill Dalton and George Thorne, Thorne, who had been arrested 5 years prior and was sent to the penitentiary, but swore he would kill Carr when he regained his liberty, which he did on first sight. And half the papers did report him dead for days.
Yeah, they did.
W.H. Carr was shot and fatally wounded in his store at Violet Springs, and this was a store that his father-in-law was in partnership with him on.
Yeah.
And again, that was Thorne, and then it becomes the Slaughter Kid, and I mean, there's just a few other names, and then this guy named Lee Hardwick, I believe, is hiding behind a wall with a shotgun, but he's too scared to shoot. And in the other one, it's his son who almost gets shot, and it's just all these crazy stories. And
Yeah, Lee Hardwick is the son, but remember, he's like 2 years old at this time.
yeah,
So again, but hold on, he's got another brother that was just born a few years before that. So he's like 4 or 5. Where was he?
Right.
There, like, I agree. The ones that I read, I instantly was going, this doesn't match what I just read 10 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Like there's not matching details here that I can line up and go, this makes sense. Okay. Okay. They misspelled his name. So what? They do that all the time. But yeah, I'm going, hold on. I didn't see the George Thorne, but one of the other articles when you read it about he's shot more times in one article.
Hmm.
One article stated that George Newcomb was killed by the shots from W.H. Carr, which he wasn't. So yeah,
Right.
there was a lot of things that were just kind of off. I just went with the one that seemed pretty straightforward and didn't seem over exaggerant, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
that's
that
what
was
you
the
got to
basis
do.
of it. Yeah. It didn't even mention all the times cars got shot. It just mentioned the first time. You read the
Hmm.
other ones and it says, oh, he was hit like 3 times.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they came there to straight up murder him, straight up kill him. And
Yeah.
I would assume since they were the men they were, so we know that Dalton was at least one of them. Whoever the second man is clearly can be maybe up for some debate, if they can't quite agree. But if a man named George Thorne, unless that was an early alias for him, if there
Could have
was a
been.
man by George Thorne that was arrested by W.H. Carr and sent to the penitentiary, then I would say that's the guy.
Yeah. And I'm going to search through my notes here real quick. Um, yeah. Check this out. August 2nd, 1888. And this is the Weekly Chieftain. Carr was in Gainesville, Texas yesterday with 6 prisoners on his way to Fort Smith. One of them was George Thorne, who hailed
Hmm.
from St. Louis and is wanted for murder and for robbing the Missouri Pacific train. And that was the same crew that he rounded up Ike Frazier in
Right.
as well. So yeah, 1888. There is a George Thorne, but maybe that's just whoever was writing the article in 1894
Mhm.
knew about Thorne just getting out and thought, "Hey, that was probably Thorne. I'm going to throw that in there." So there's just no way to know.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But I mean, I don't know that correlation seems a little too strong to ignore, though. If it's
Yeah,
true, I mean, if he arrests him, yeah. So 7 years later, he gets out and comes and finds him. Makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Now we're into the big one. Again, I know you've got some info. I've got some info. June 30th, 1895. So just a year after he was gunned down, Bob and Will Christian escaped from the Oklahoma County Jail, where they were being held for the murder of a deputy sheriff, Will Turner. During a staged and violent escape, they killed Oklahoma Police Chief Milton Jones. Armed conspirators smuggled revolvers into the jail, and along with an inmate named Jim Casey, they overpowered the guard. While fleeing through the streets is when they killed Police Chief Jones. Now, that is June 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. July 25th, 1895. The Oklahoma Weekly Leader reported that Sheriff DeFord had arrested one Deputy Hank Watts, a well-known man in the Seminole and Creek countries. Watts was accused of assisting the Christian brothers in the escape. It says Watts was arrested in Tecumseh and that a warrant for W.H. Carr was also issued. So there's the line.
Yeah. In
W.H.
trouble.
Carr, he's in trouble. So we've got a burned down saloon, kind of seems definitely suspicious. A young man loses his life, gets burned to death, gets acquitted, escapes from any kind of consequence there. And a year later, he's gunned down a couple years later, but he survives, continues being a deputy marshal. And then this happens. Now, one thing you and I discussed about, we're going to talk further about this stuff because there's a lot of information, but I could not find, because there's more. I mean, Carr's going to be found, he's going to be arrested, and I couldn't find anything personally that would suggest as to why Carr would assist at all
Right.
in helping the Christian brothers escape. Now, I'm researching this as we're learning it for the episode. Again, this was something we got interested in and we started running with it. Um, the Christian brothers were bad dudes. They
Yeah.
were bad men. And so all the things they had done up until this point, I had to question again, what's going on with our deputy Carr here? You know,
Mhm.
Swain had this innate habit for just, shooting a lot of prisoners. But Carr, there doesn't seem to be a lot of that, right? He got in the gunfight and killed this person, killed that person. Yeah, he's getting shootouts with his posse and that kind of stuff when they're trying to arrest people here and there, but I don't see a lot of that. I don't
Yeah.
see, so I don't know what the turn is. I don't know what the switch that's clicking that's making him decide that this path should be ventured. I'm not sure. Because we can only speculate what it could be. He's also married. He's got 2 kids. Both are, under 6 years old. You
Mhm.
know, it's very interesting. So, I mean, his name is thrown in there along with Deputy Hank Watts for assisting. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a couple days later, July 27th, 1895, the Tribune Democrat out of Enid, Oklahoma, reported that one deputy, W.H. Carr, had been arrested by Sheriff DeFord in Lexington. The article also stated that the evidence against Deputy Carr was quote unquote overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I believe that was because it was the testimony of a young woman named Jessie Finley, who was the girlfriend of Bob Christian at the time. Okay. There was another gentleman that was in there that helped. His name kept coming up in the testimony, a guy named Tullis Welch.
Mhm.
There's him, there's Finley, and a man by the name of John Reeves or John Jack Reeves. What else do you have on this? What else do
And
you have on this?
a guy named John Fessenden as well, yeah. So,
Yes.
to go back a little bit, at some point prior, the Christian brothers, who later they'll become what's called the High Fives gang, and,
Right.
Black Jack Christian, Bill Christian is gonna be the main dude, and he's actually gonna get in trouble in New Mexico later on, and,
Hmm.
but, prior to their jailing, they killed another US Marshal. So they were
Okay.
arrested for that and put into jail. Um, on June 10th, Bob and Bill Christian, it's 2 brothers who kinda head up this gang, they were transferred to the Oklahoma County Jail in Oklahoma City. They share a cell block with a guy named James Casey,
Right.
and along with Casey, the 3 of them start hatching plans to get out. Um, so during that time between June 10th and June 30th when they bust out, one paper says at least 3 loaded revolvers were smuggled into the prisoners. One was a white-handled .45 decorated with an eagle's head, and here's something to pay attention to, which Bob Christian had used to kill Marshal Turner, and which had been placed in the custody of Deputy Marshals Carr and Watts. The prisoners,
Whoa.
yes, they had that gun. The prisoners unjointed the pipe of a stove in the rear of the cell block, packed it with a piece of a blanket, and stored the guns there. So on June 30th, they're allowed the freedom of the corridor. There's a jailer, and his name is J.H. Garver. His wife is visiting, and Mrs. Garver's just hanging out there.
Mhm.
And the prisoners sneak the guns out of the stovepipe, and they're walking the corridor. And Mr. Garver instructs his wife to close the door after him because he goes into the corridor. And as he steps into it, the Christian brothers and Casey spring on him with their revolvers. And of course, his wife, Mrs. Garver, is so just freaking out about what to do that she shuts the door but doesn't lock it. And so they get
Mhm.
out, and they, of course, run down the street and all try to escape. And there's a passage in a book that I pulled, West of Hell's Fringe. Gosh, I can't remember who wrote it, but I have the source here somewhere. Really well known writer, I think.
Okay.
But it says the two Christians and Casey sprang upon Garver and hurled him against the iron grating. Then followed a fearful struggle. They get out. This is what really struck me as just vivid, like you can see it happening. On leaving the jail, all three prisoners started south in the alley. Chief of Police Milt Jones' horse was tied in the alley. One of the Christians, Bill, mounted it and started away. Meanwhile, Bob Christian and Casey ran out onto Grand Avenue and turned east toward Broadway. Almost in the center of Grand, they ran up to a buggy in which was Mr. Gus White, a carpenter. Christian jumped up into the buggy, and Casey jumped in behind. Chief Jones was standing in Broadway a few feet north of the crossing.
Hmm.
Two officers were also there. The men were recognized, and Chief Jones started toward the buggy with his revolver in his hand, but he did not fire. At the same instant, Christian jumped up from the buggy and fired at Chief Jones. It's believed that the Christian's bullet was the one that struck Jones in the breast. His hands dropped and became rigid, and he called a bystander to take his gun. He then turned and walked toward police headquarters, and when opposite the stairway, he sank to the sidewalk. And that, like, could you imagine him? You've got your gun, you're about to shoot this guy, then you get hit, and your
Mhm.
arms go so rigid, you have to tell someone standing nearby to take the gun out of your hand. And then you just
Lapse and die.
you just
Yeah.
robotically walk towards like your headquarters and just die. But yeah, so the gang gets away. But that was one piece of evidence, that gun. There's no way they could have gotten the gun
Yeah.
without Carr's involvement and Watts, because that's who the
Okay.
gun was turned over to.
So,
Um,
okay, so yeah, so when I saw Jesse Finley's testimony, so not only was she saying that they assisted with that gun and they're the ones that, because that's what she said, I didn't see that there was an exact description of the gun and it was the same one that he had arrested and taken off of him. Like I didn't know that.
there is
So,
there is another article, and I'm looking through my notes to find it, but I don't want to take up too much time. That at one point, Carr did admit to knowing the Christians and visiting with them and hanging out with them in the past, but not
mm,
taking part in their bad deeds.
right.
And Fessenden, John Fessenden, which is one of the accomplices, he upon his testimony, he said that Carr and Old Man Christian, which is who they called the Christian's father, uh, they assembled Fessenden and Reeves at their house, at Old Man Christian's house, and Carr gave them the guns and said, "Take these to Oklahoma City. You'll give them to a guy named Lewis, I believe,
Hmm.
and he'll take the guns in." And so you also had Fessenden's testimony that Carr was like the
Right.
mastermind behind it. But again, that's
Mm,
just testimony. To me, the strongest implication is the gun itself, which they're like,
yeah.
how'd they get
Yeah.
that gun? And it
Exactly.
was Bob or Bill Christian's gun, so Carr was wanting to get it back to him. Sounds like a nice
Hmm.
gun.
Yeah. It's like, man, I can't keep this gun. Look at that eagle's head, dude.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it's too good. Well, okay, so we got this next part, October 3rd, 1895. The Canadian County Republican out of El Reno, Oklahoma, reported that an application for habeas corpus was filed for Deputy Carr and that his bond was set at $10,000.
10,000.
So he is applying to what? To have the case like squashed.
Yeah, you know what? And maybe someone who's an attorney or knows the legal world can answer this in the comments, because it seems like literally every murder arrest I've come across is in the history of everything. They always get off or like paroled on a writ of habeas corpus. And I know
Yeah,
what it means. It's something like, show the body or something like that, but I don't
right,
understand how it's applied all the time in such a successful way. Like, what does it mean when you apply to get released on a
right,
writ of habeas corpus? Because like
right.
a lot of times there is a body and they know that you did it, but they
Yeah,
no. Colin says no proof. Maybe that's just what it means. Just simply, show me the
yeah.
proof.
Right.
But
So you're right. You have the girlfriend of a known murderer saying that brought this gun. Yeah, I get it. Okay. It makes sense. But again, we are going to find out that clearly that doesn't happen because, well, I mean, I guess it does. He gets a couple of men to,
yeah,
uh, yeah, to pay the bond. He gets his
yeah.
bond paid.
Well, even
And
his
then,
lawyer, Judge Melton, is like, "This is gonna be easy to get him off. It's a no-brainer. Carr's a respected citizen,
yeah,
and everybody in Lexington, where he's living at this time, is like, uh, he's our pal, of course we're gonna vouch for him, and by
yeah,
all appearances, he is.
yeah.
So yeah, of course they pony up.
Well, and you think too, I'm not saying that that makes anything okay, but I mean, he had the saloon, he's had the store, right? So he's also looked as a respected marshal, maybe a respected businessman, has a wife, has a couple of kids, but definitely not looked at to be in the same light with the Christian brothers, right? Like, I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
you wouldn't go that far. So
And it's the
very
same. I mean,
interesting.
if you want to compare it to Henry Newton Brown back in
Yeah.
what was that,
Yeah.
1884? I mean, look, he
Yeah.
was city marshal, just got married. I
Hmm.
mean, they gave him a gold-plated Winchester with his name on
Right.
it and everything because he was such a good city marshal. And
And look what he
there he
did.
goes. He takes that rifle and goes and tries to rob the bank at Medicine Lodge. So yeah, it's
Kind of
crazy how
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, I've always thought about that. What was that? Him and being in that position, and then he got that old blood going from the Lincoln
Yeah.
County War, and he's like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I always wanted the same thing, and
I
it's
think it was
interesting
just,
how,
money. Just money.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, because they were getting paid like crap. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. It makes me wonder how many we've encountered. So many of these outlaws into marshals, and then while they're marshals, they end up doing bad shit, right? Or it's the complete opposite. They were outlaws at some point, or they did something, a murder, like Swain,
Mhm.
kills George Donahue, and then ends up within a couple years being one of the most respected U.S. Marshals in Indian Territory.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and
nuts, right?
I really think in this instance, Carr was not planning on going outlaw. I think for whatever reason, he was friendly with the Christian
Hmm.
family, and I think he was just going to either A, help them escape, and that be the end of it, and he goes on being respectable and undetected, or B, help them escape and
Yeah,
then capture them himself. And then
yeah,
get a reward and do all that and play both sides at the same time, which is
right.
possible. But,
Awesome, also
there
very
there is
possible.
there is an instance where, he was accused of throwing marshals off their scent after the escape, and he admitted that he told them wrong information, but he said it was to keep them from having a deadly encounter with the Christian brothers, which doesn't ring very true to me.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that would be, it's like it's a good excuse though. It's a good
Yeah,
excuse because you're like, hey, these guys have killed marshals, right? Like they don't see that, they don't see that division. Like they're just gonna kill you. You know what I mean? Maybe
right.
that's what it is. Who knows? But again, it does seem like there's enough evidence, you know, to point in that direction that he might have had something to do with it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But then again, his actions, right?
The
He ends up
strongest
getting
evidence will be the actions that come
Yeah,
next.
right. So he gets the bond paid in October. November 15th, 1895, the People's Voice out of Norman, Oklahoma, printed just a big paragraph headlined with the question, where is W.H. Carr? Carr's bond was paid back in October, and he has vanished. November 22nd, 1895, a report came from El Reno that he had been seen in Laredo, Texas, and was probably headed for South America, most likely Cuba, to
Yeah,
join the insurgent army. Okay, so between October and November, bond is paid, and W.H. Carr is gone.
gone. So
Gone.
so they put up for a bond, and some
Mhm.
accounts say 10,000, some say 15,000.
15, I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may be that there were actually 2 separate ones, that were paid. But yeah, so there was another guy, an ex-sheriff, and he knew Bill, and reports according to him were that Bill was getting on the train to go back to Oklahoma City
Mhm.
at the depot, and he stepped on the train and it took off, and he hopped down and said, "I'm gonna take another one." And then they never saw him again. And the sheriff was able to track his movements to St. Louis, and from there he took a carriage to Noble, I believe, and
Mhm.
then that's where they lost his trail. So that's like the last time we can keep definite track of him. And after that,
Wow.
it's just rumors.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. And we still got a little bit more. So he's gone. Okay. No side of him other than what we talked about in the reports of, yeah, Army and the information you just gave. Now, this next thing is just one of these things. It did happen often, but especially in the frontier era, but it's just saddening either way. July 10th, 1896. So about a year, not even a year later, the Norman transcript out of Norman, Oklahoma reported that Lee Hardwick Carr, the 4-year-old son of wanted outlaw Bill Carr, had accidentally shot himself in the stomach and died instantly. This
Yeah.
occurred at the home of a Dr. Hamilton. It was in his office. It said that Lee was with friends, it said playmates, actually, obviously his age. And I wonder if Dr. Hamilton had a child that was the same age and why
Yeah, I
Lee was
reckon.
there. Right. It doesn't state, just said that it took place in the home of Dr. Hamilton. It was in his office and it was his 22 caliber.
Yeah. And
So very,
what's crazy is, you know, to get off of this central topic real quick, that if you look at the last couple sentences, this is not long after Bill Carr fleeing the country. This
yeah.
is recent. It's already the media is already twisting the narrative. They say
Mhm.
he's now a fugitive and was one of the most daring outlaws ever in this
Yeah.
territory. Makes
Yeah, I
no
didn't write
mention
that
of
down
him.
because I'm
Yeah,
like, dude.
makes no mention of him being a marshal.
Yeah.
Makes no mention of his long tenure as a lawman, an efficient lawman. Already it's painting him as one of the most daring outlaws ever in the territory. I mean,
Yeah.
how quick the legend hasn't even had time to grow.
No,
It's
less than
just been a
6
little
months.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
less than 6 months, and he's already the famed, noted desperado, Bill Carr. Just nuts,
Right.
man.
Almost as if he went in there physically and helped
Yeah,
break them out and killed Milt Jones himself.
and had a
Yeah.
consistent history of being an outlaw for years and
True.
years and
Yeah.
years.
Very true.
But, I mean,
Okay.
imagine being on the run, and then I'm sure he learned of this somehow, that your 4-year-old son,
Yeah.
just
That
to top everything else off.
Right. And I kind of wondered if he knew. I'm going to mention this very, very quick. I don't need to because it was a little bit before this. The New York Times had an article about him, April 30th, 1895. The headline read, King of the Chickasaw. And it
Yeah.
referred to him as Fighting Bill Carr. But as I put right here, almost, I'd say 90% of the article was inaccurate.
Oh,
Dates and
yeah.
names incorrect. They said he was from Pennsylvania. I
Yep.
was like, what am I reading here? So I just was like, that's interesting. But of course, months later in November, when he's wanted, oh, the New York Times decided to cover that as well. And, letting all their readers know that, hey, this guy that we called the king of the Chickasaw 6 months ago is now this huge wanted outlaw. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The New York Times jumped all over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
But
was interesting. Okay, here we go. Now, this is one of these things that you and I are like, well, if we followed this further, I attempted to do it for a couple of days and didn't get very far.
yeah.
Here we go. Friday, June 8th, 1900. The
Yeah.
Tecumseh Standard out of Tecumseh, Oklahoma, printed an article about about a man named Dad Fagan from Creek
Old Dad
Country.
Fagan.
Dad Fagan. He told the newspaper that he had recently had a long talk with one Bill Carr, who was now going by the alias Bill Evans. Dad Fagan claimed that all the talk about South America wasn't true and that he'd actually first went to South Texas with the Christian Brothers. He reports they were now in the Creek Nation, approximately 65 miles east of Shawnee, Oklahoma. And George Elkins was supposedly with them. It mentioned that.
We will remember that George Elkins of the saloon burning down
Yeah.
era. So
Yeah.
this is an old friend of his.
All these names pretty much match, and having, I liked how it doesn't say exactly. It says approximately 65 miles east of Shawnee. Like it's giving a very direct location. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So again, very interesting. George Elkins was with them. It says that it mentioned also in the article that a man named Teat McColgan and W.T. Jones paid
Teat.
$1,200 between them for Carr's bond.
Uncle Teat.
Uncle Teat.
Oh, man.
Okay. Now, 6 months previous, before this article about this man named Bill Evans, I could have read this first, but I wanted to read that part. Go back 6 months previous, January 11th, 1900, the Minco Minstrel reported that one Bill Evans was arrested there and placed in the Chickasaw jail. But it doesn't say anything else. My bet, since it was Chickasaw, that it's the same Bill Evans.
Right.
That's my assumption, of course, but it's because everything else lines up. So, but after that, I couldn't find a trail for a Bill Evans.
Right.
I didn't go. I went about 4 or 5 years after, and I stopped.
Yeah. And I got to give Dad Fagan credit because Fagan was a resident of Lexington at the same time as Bill.
Yep.
He knew Bill, so he would know him by visual. And you have to give it a little bit of weight. Now, could Dad Fagan be lying? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really, there's a lot going on there that makes me look at it with some seriousness.
Yeah, he's got all the mentions. He's literally saying that, all that talk about him going to South America wasn't true.
Yeah.
Very interesting that he makes a point to address that. Yeah, he didn't go there. He's been in Texas the whole time.
Yeah. So at this point, we've reached the point of past historicity and just saying, what do you think? What's your educated guess? And mine would have to be that he didn't go to Cuba, that he really stuck around like so many outlaws do.
Yeah.
They stick around, they take up an alias, and they kind of stay in their home stomping grounds. And he
because,
probably did that and just either, died violently as part of some gang or just kind of faded into history, but nobody knows.
Yeah. And I've got here, there's no more further documentation on this W.H. Carr.
No.
Don't know what happened to him. Now we've got one last thing before we get out of here. I'm going to cover it very, very quickly. And I know that's might be disappointing to some for those who are watching live or watch later. We discussed where we're going to talk about this. I'm like, we're going to do it very quickly. Now, I wouldn't think we would have to venture down this road when researching this particular gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
But as it were, Mr. Brushy Bill Roberts, Oliver Pleasant Roberts, in one of his many testimonies, why not? He's Billy the Kid. He rode with the James gang. He also said at one point in his life, he was a deputy under Judge Isaac Parker, and he used the alias W.H. Carr. I kid you not.
Yeah, which is crazy because I never remembered him saying that as much as I've looked into it, but that's fascinating that he brought that up.
Mm-hmm. Weird, fascinating again, because a lot of people were like, how'd he know? He didn't know. Didn't know.
Everybody knew Bill Carr went missing. So heck, if you're going to pick someone that was never found. So you can say you're him.
Well, and I know this is never going to be this simple for some, but for some, it's all you need to hear. It just depends, okay? I don't want to go down a massive thing because we know how I feel about this, and I have done my own extensive work on this, and you will not convince me. I cannot be convinced because it's just not possible, okay? Oliver Pleasant Roberts was born August 26th, 1879 in Sebastian County, Arkansas. This is supported by the federal census for 1880 for Sebastian County, Arkansas. He is living with his parents, Henry Oliver and Sarah Elizabeth, he is listed as 1 years old. He
Yeah.
was not born in Buffalo Gap, Texas, like he told his entire testimonial life. That's where he was born. When you look up Buffalo Gap, Texas, you find out very quick that it did not exist at the time that he says he was born there. Okay. Everything you can trace, if you're just really wanting to know the truth and not blinding yourself to what you want to believe, it's not possible. This means in 1881, July 14th, 1881, that man, that child, that toddler is 2 years old. If you go the route of going, oh, yeah, but you know the story, he took over his cousin's identity and no one bothered to know. Yeah, it doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. If you are a brushy believer, you're just going to have to face the facts that that's not how it works. You don't have a new birth date. Your birth date doesn't go away. You can't say, yeah, but he's this guy now, so that's why you can't find it. No, it's because he was a toddler. And I've never seen one person who is a at heart brushy believer who wants it to be so true. You will never find one person actually support that this cousin that he took the identity of actually exists.
Oh,
Not
right.
once.
Yeah.
Not once.
No,
Okay.
no, because the cousin is Oliver Roberts, and
Right.
it just doesn't exist. Yeah.
It doesn't exist. He doesn't exist. And not one person can go, gee, oh, okay, so it's a cousin. So that means he's got to be the son or daughter of this brother or this, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's all these things. Okay. This photo you were looking at, for all of you who may have seen it, has been posted before in one of the groups, in our group, Life and Legend, of Billy the Kid. You may have seen it elsewhere. This is the original photo. This is the original. You are looking at the immediate Roberts family, circa 1895. I'm going to go a few years earlier because it did say circa, because of how small Mr. Oliver Pleasant Roberts' frame is. All the way to the right, if you would zoom in, James, there
Sure.
is Mr. Brushy Bill Roberts.
That's right.
His father is at the very end on the left, next to his mother.
Guys, real quick, there's that photo of Brushy that everybody passes around where he's an older gentleman with a mustache. It's a portrait,
Yeah.
and he's got the old clothes on and everything. And I personally don't believe that's Brushy. I think, if anything, it could be his father that Brushy was passing off as him, or
a relative
or just somebody
or something
he found. Yeah, because I mean, look at this guy, looks a lot like the Brushy in later pictures, even the 1920s one where he's on a horse. I tell you who this guy does not look like later on is the well mustachioed man.
Yeah, no. And that thick black mustache portrait of that man that everyone uses, you look carefully, that man looks like he's got some big teeth.
So this
and he's
is
got some
ironic.
big ears.
This is actually a good instance. Keith just said the ex-wife of Ollie P. He's talking about Anna. Anna Brown, I believe, was her name.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was Molly Brown. Anna, I forget Anna's last name at this time, but so
he was married multiple times.
Yes, Anna was his first wife, if according to records. I believe it was about 1909, and they actually got a divorce. Ollie asked to divorce Anna because she was cruel and abusive and everything. Anyway, she was still living when researcher William Tunstall was doing his work to prove Brushy. And Tunstall showed her a picture of Brushy, and she said, "That's not the Oliver that I'm married." Mm-hmm. My belief is the picture that Tunstall showed her was the picture that I'm saying right now was not Brushy, and I believe she was right. It's not Brushy. Now, Jewel, Keith says Jewel was the stepdaughter of Brushy, and the mother of Jewel was Molly Brown, and that was Brushy's wife that he married, and she died of Spanish flu during that epidemic.
Right.
And they lived in Arkansas, and they, of course, all of them called Oliver OP. They called him OP Roberts. Mm-hmm. And when she saw the picture of Brushy and when Jules saw the picture of Brushy on the horse from the 1920s,
Right,
she
right.
said that's exactly how he looked when Mom met him.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so yes, that's Brushy. Um and I got that from Tony Preston, who is Jules' grandson. And
right.
he has a lot of family info. But yeah, I mean that's clear, that's Brushy Bill. That's Oliver
Well, and
Roberts.
also what this proves is that this gentleman, Oliver Pleasant Roberts, for whatever he was, had his own life, his own family. He can be found on every federal census for Texas until his death.
Yeah.
He did
And you know,
not. Uh, oh, yes. Sorry. So the first one is the original. This can be found. It's a little bit clearer. This can be found in the book Brushy Bill, proof that his claim as Billy the Kid was a hoax, written by Roy Hawes, the great nephew of Oliver Pleasant Roberts. And you know what happened when he put out this book? You know, all the hardcore believers, you know what they did? They just accused him of not knowing his own family lineage.
right. Yeah,
I mean,
Roy's
that's
an
the kind of crap that we're dealing with. So that book can be easily found, Amazon, Kindle. It's a good book. It literally
yes.
gives you everything, everything, the family photos, the family Bible information, everything,
Yeah.
everything. And
Roy's a nice guy, but he's out of the Brushy business. He said, I wrote the book, I got it out of my system.
yeah, he's like, I wanted everyone to know the truth. And it seems like everyone like practically turned on him. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. But also all these things we talk about with W.H. Carr and what he was achieving, okay, 1888, 1895, and, you know, everything happens, he disappears, okay? So the 1890 census is the same thing as the 1880 census, except he's listed as 10 years old, okay? In 1900, when W.H. Carr disappeared or was gone, and we found the article about Bill Evans, which is all the way in Indian Territory, the 1900 census for Hopkins, Texas lists Oliver P. Roberts as 20 years old, born 1879, single, living with his parents, Henry Oliver and Sarah Elizabeth Roberts.
Yeah. I mean, and the
So,
thing is, I mean, for anyone to maintain that Carr, this WH Carr, was in any way Brushy or Billy, you have to. I mean, I don't know what kind of stuff theory that you have to create, because these papers, if you go back to his hometown, William Carr was not an alias. He
nope.
had parents, he had family, he had brothers.
Yeah.
One of his brothers was a well-respected minister, and you'll see articles that say, "Hey, Turner Carr's brother, Bill Carr, was just shot in Violet Springs. His half brother, Richard Payne, is on his way out to check on him." And
Right. All
then,
names that we encountered in the ancestry. Right. It's,
yeah,
yeah.
and
So
that
it's all
sheriff,
connected.
the sheriff who was looking for him when he skipped bail, went to the hometown, and there was a
Mhm.
huge article that was like, basically, "Hey, the sheriff came here, nobody's seen him since. His
Yeah.
brother Turner's still here." I mean, it's all, you know,
Yeah.
it's all tied in.
Yeah.
It's a lock, shut and lock case.
You know, I do understand as many years as and the years just keep going by, right? That we've been involved in this and we've encountered everything possible when it comes to Brushy. Okay. And you need to know anyone, it doesn't matter. I understand everyone's going to walk away with their own opinion. The problem is when you start going around and saying it's a fact, when you say, "Oh, I have proof." Okay, well, we just showed you 100% documented proof that this man couldn't have been where he was when he said he was there, because he was a lot younger than he actually said he was, and nothing fits. Like I said, he wasn't a Rough Rider. That is 100% not true. The supposed Rough Rider photo of him is not him. It's a man named William D. Wood from Raton, New Mexico, who has his entire life easily mapped out. He's mentioned in Teddy Roosevelt's book titled Rough Riders.
Well,
That photo is in the book as William D. Wood. Yet here's
real quick,
everyone.
uh, Wild Josh from Wild West Extravaganza.
Yeah,
I'd never seen the photo before, but I think he just did a podcast on Wood, and there's at least one photo from later in life where he's clearly that man who is in the photo of the Rough Riders. It's the same guy, and it
yeah.
is not brushy, you know?
Well, no, I mean, like I said, it's one of these things where, granted, he's doing an episode, he does what he does, but again, it's just to feed the mass. It's like these people, like, fans of shows, podcasts, they want to know, right? So they make a comment, maybe they make a suggestion, and then someone does another episode. And I understand, but again, everyone is just keeping this man into the history. They're keeping his name on their tongue constantly, even if they know for 100% fact. Like, you're like, no, he was 2 years old. I don't buy the he took over his cousin's identity. Not to mention the fact that just sounds asinine. Nobody knew it. Nobody figured it out. Give me a break. My biggest issue, honestly, and no one can ever answer it. That's the problem. They just get mad. And you know it. You've seen it. I've
Yeah.
literally asked, why? Why can someone just come out of thin blue air, out of the sky in 1950 and say, I'm Billy the Kid, Pat Garrett's a liar, he didn't kill anybody, and everyone just believed it, and everyone still does? Why? Why? What makes this man even remotely truthful? There isn't a bit of document. Oh, the affidavits. Except no one ever talks about the affidavits, what happened to him. They went before Governor Thomas Mabry when he went to try to get, his pardon, and they weren't credible at all. Because all it was
No.
a list of people saying, I know Oliver Pleasant Roberts for this long. They weren't people that knew Billy the Kid and said, he is Billy the Kid. No, those people were all tracked, easily found. They all lived in the same damn town as he did.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean? It's just,
unfortunately, I mean, it's like, for instance, DeWitt Travis, who
oh,
who
yeah.
gave an affidavit, and in
Yeah.
the affidavit, he gives his family history, and any search, of these people's family history shows it's not how they said either. And I
Yeah.
mean, in the instance of J. Frank Dalton, who I still think it would be just fascinating if J. Frank Dalton were Bill
Was
Carr,
W.H.
because,
Carr.
but in the instance of J. Frank Dalton, two people that he said or got affidavits from, and two people that
Mhm.
went into newspapers saying this is Jesse James. Al Jennings, noted fake wannabe outlaw who tried to rob a train and went to jail.
Right.
He said he was Jesse, and John Trammell, this really old, uh, supposedly 100 and some year old black dude who said he was Jesse James's cook, which may have been true, but
Mhm.
they both said he was Jesse James. Now, when Homer Croy was researching for his book and trying to disprove it all later on, he found out that both of those guys lied. And why did they lie? Well, Al Jennings said it straight. I was paid $50. So why
Mhm.
not? And so these things happen. And I'm not as well versed on the sources for Brushy because it's been so long. But
Right.
I do know that there are documents or sources that seem to indicate that what was his name? Gallegos was paid.
Severos Gallegos. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep. I
I
believe so
seem
too.
to remember that there's a chance he was paid, and they all, and when J. Frank Dalton came to Stella James, Jesse James's stepdaughter,
Right. Right.
who married Jesse Jr., she proved to him that Dalton was not Jesse James in a way that we'll get to later. But anyway, Lee Houck said, "Yeah, but here's Reverend Hiley, and here's me, and if you agree and just lie and say he's Jesse, we'll give you $50,000." And of course, Stella didn't and came out and said that. So I mean, this is the stuff that happens, and this is what
Yeah.
you gotta take into consideration. I was just researching Jesse James today, well, the imposters, and I found this article from 1960 in the Colorado Springs Gazette. This 3-part article that this guy wrote about Lee Houck. Lee
Mhm.
Houck was Jesse J. Frank Dalton's promoter, and later claimed to be his grandson. And after Dalton died, went by Jesse James III. Right? Um,
Right.
there's a passage that says something really good, man. It goes, and I think it's symbolic of a lot of folks in this field and why we all get so frustrated. He said, Lee Houck has a great many arguments to present in his favor. They consist of A, everything accepted as history is wrong, and B, nobody else knows as much as he does. He
Of course.
maintains that he maintains that those who believe or cooperate with him are serious students of true history, and those who do not are merely frustrated tools who wish to defend their own mistaken thinking and who become devious and hit below the belt because they cannot. It is impossible to argue with Lee
Mm,
Houck because his reasoning is circular. Since he knows more than anyone else, he is the only one who knows the real answer. Should anyone attempt to break the circle of reasoning by mentioning a historical personality, Houck maintains that history is untrue, that the man didn't die until 50 years later, or that the
yeah.
man was a fraud. Why should we believe that? Because Houck, who knows all, has evidence.
Hmm.
And to me, that's very. I mean, that could sum up so many people that I've had to deal with. That like
Yeah.
the minute you present a contradiction or evidence or any kind of proof that seems to ruin a prior claim, that
Yeah.
claim just shape shifts into something else. For instance, the Oliver cousin thing. Oliver found his cousin's body and took his identity. You say,
Right.
well, there's no way that his parents would mistake him. It
No.
shifts into no, they knew, but they covered for him.
Yep. It
Well, there's no
changes
way.
every single time. Yep. It changes all the time.
It's goalpost moving, and
Yep.
I just that I just thought that was really good. I what Joe says, you give me 50K and I'll say you're whoever you want me to say. Me too, man. Yeah,
No kidding, man. I guess I
absolutely.
would. I guess I wouldn't have to think about it a whole lot. It's
Dude,
just
yeah,
I
if
understand.
any mains like any of the brushy proponents want to pay me $50,000, I'll jump on their side and start campaigning hard, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, been saying this recently. I understood it and I did agree for a while, but I've heard this argument by many um, that all the brushy talk is good because it keeps Billy's history alive. And I'm sorry, I no longer agree with that and wish to just kind of roll right over that statement. Because unfortunately, everyone is out here just lacing the internet with ridiculous comments they can't support. They read somewhere else, or someone else told them, or because they Googled it.
Yeah.
And
I
that's what you're
get, yeah.
dealing with.
No,
You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. And it's kind of funny because you'll see me say things like I love brushy and stuff like that. And but that argument that it keeps Billy in people's mouths, I don't truck with that so much anymore.
Yeah. It's
I am interested in Brushy and Dalton because I'm interested in the brass balls that these guys had as liars and frauds. Like I'm
yeah,
interested in their motivations, their life, their psychology, and their story, apart
yeah,
from Billy or Jesse James, because I don't believe that they were them. But yeah, no, it's not. I'm kind of done appreciating the
yeah,
brushy involvement in the Billy story because I don't know, my view of Billy changes over the years as I study more and everything like that. So the Billy that I've come to realize or put together from documented evidence looks nothing like the legend or the one paraded by Brushy anyway. And it's like, why wouldn't people just want to,
yeah,
you know, dig
yeah.
through that and get to the real thing?
Well, and also too, like he didn't stop at just stating he was the most notorious outlaw in history. No. He had to say that he was a deputy U.S. Marshal.
I
He had
fought
to
with
say he
Pancho
rode with
Villa.
Jesse and
Yeah.
James. I rode with Pancho Villa. Why would anybody listen to any of this? Why would someone go, "This is amazing. Billy the Kid did this, did that." It's I
Well, you
it's
know,
like it's like reading
honestly,
your favorite comic book, dude. I just don't get it. But then again, there are people out there listening who we've encountered in the past. They're cursing us to the heavens right now because
yeah,
they're
and
so
I hate
frustrated.
that. For
Right?
instance,
They're frustrated because we don't see it. We
yeah,
don't see what they have found. I'm
and I'm
sorry.
not, yeah, and I'm
Take
not
me to a
being,
court of law and I will destroy any of it with documentation because a court of law is going to go, oh, Yeah, sorry, but that's how it works when someone dies. There's a coroner's inquest, which there was. The president of the coroner's jury was there. He was. The justice of the peace was there. He signed it, wrote it in Spanish. Why? Fort Summer's all Hispanics.
Yeah.
Like, just what I'm just saying, it's one of those things, right? And then you have Garrett. Everyone's like, "Oh, he lied." Well, he also wrote his report and sent it to the district attorney of New Mexico, and he had a copy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Along with the copy of the, but what happens? Documentation gets lost, right? The original inquest was lost for many years, and then it was found. But then it was found, and everyone's like, "Well, how are we going to believe that? That's the real inquest." Well, gee,
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, just the obviousness of it, I guess. It's also interesting to me that a lot of people that we've encountered will go as far as, well, why would you believe a government document? It's all a lie.
Right, that's it. I mean, again, it
Yeah,
goes back to that
yeah,
article I quoted that all of history is a lie. Like, you have to start with that premise that there is this, and we joked about it all the way back to Michael Giudicissi, where, on that show we made fun of the fact that, there's this thing called big history, and that there's all this money being channeled into keeping
yeah,
a federal government approved narrative, and it's not true. There is no big history. Uh,
yeah.
History
Well,
can be wrong sometimes. And yeah, and that's
well,
why, I'm not trying to be malevolent or anything. We have a Keith who watches the show all the time, and I mean, he talks about Brushy a lot. I don't want to put words in his mouth and say he's a Brushy believer, but if he is, I welcome that too. And he said, "You may be right. Digging deeper may tell." And another comment, he said, "I would say the research continues," and I can fully endorse both of those positions. Let's keep researching. Let's keep, you know, uh, whatever the other thing said. Continue the research, and I've
yeah,
already lost it. But let's keep digging deeper. And if I just ask everybody, whatever camp you're leaning in,
yeah,
acknowledge when documentation points a certain way, and be very cautious. And I say this to myself and anybody else of shifting the narrative once that documentation points that way,
hmm,
of being like, well, he assumed his
exactly.
cousin's life. Oh, well,
Yeah,
they knew.
it's constant rewrites of a script. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's good examples, like very interesting. I'm not even joking. One of my coworkers, brother-in-law, his wife's brother, he's a screenplay writer and a novelist, right? And years
Mhm.
back, he had the opportunity to rewrite the script for Demolition Man. He did it, was paid, but was not credited.
Mm.
And it was just that he was telling a story. There's just constant rewrite, constant rewrite, constant rewrite. Well, this doesn't make sense. We're going to shift this. We got rid of this character. This character doesn't exist. Now we're going to rewrite this. You know what I mean? And that's what I feel it is. If I say, instead of someone just going, you know what, I accept that challenge. I will prove that the cousin existed and whatever else. Fine, prove
Yeah.
it. Instead of coming at me in a way of telling me that, well, that's just what you believe. Well, I didn't give you my opinion. I gave you documented fact. If you speculate from it, that is on you because you're just going to go down a road that I'm telling you the challenge is open to all. You have James has his way of approaching things, and we both have our, likenesses and our differences. And I think that's what makes us good. But, keep researching. And I challenge anybody. Challenge anything that you come across. If you go, I don't believe this because of A, B, and C. Okay, but you can't just go, well, I don't believe this because. Fine, follow it up with support, which doesn't seem to happen a whole lot when I get called out on things, right? If I say, okay, here's this. I just sent you 4 pieces of documentation that all support this one fact, and you go, you're a liar. Yeah, at that point, the rage begins to seethe, and I just don't want to see you. I don't want to be near you. I definitely don't want to run in path with me. I get too frustrated. And people tell us because you want people to only believe you. And I don't think it's about wanting to believe me. I mean, because I am feeding off of all the great historians that came years
Mhm.
before me. that have been doing this. And all we've done is improve that research because of the things we have access to now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean,
Colin says, do you think Brushy was a reader? And this is a good example of we're talking about documentation and history as far as what we can speculate on. And this is actually one of those points that I don't know because there's documentation for both.
right,
And
that
it's
says
something.
he couldn't read, right? There's one that
Yes,
says he couldn't
yes.
read, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good question, though.
So,
It's a
yeah,
good question.
I mean, I've seen things that are allegedly written by Brushy, letters that are written. Brushy had notebooks, right?
Hmm.
And they say that his wife or his wife at that time would write for him. But I've seen things purported to be in his own handwriting. He had a very, very unique W that
Mm.
his wife did not do when I've seen her letters, but I could be wrong. But Morrison, I know at one point said that Brushy couldn't read.
Yeah.
Um, and Tony Preston, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, grandson of Jewel, Brushy's stepdaughter,
Hmm.
he told me a story. He said that Brushy would always carry around this newspaper, right? This article from the newspaper, and would tell people that he rode in the rodeo in Madison Square Garden, and he would pull out the article and pretend to read from it. But he said
Mm.
everybody laughed because he held it upside down, and he didn't,
Right.
So yeah, I
Well,
mean, so there are those stories, but I've also come across other things of people saying he could read and write, and so
yeah.
yeah.
And I always come across with, like I said, with different things we have floating in our heads. I remember when I was doing the research about the supposed DNA, and the bench and the courthouse and the stairs, everything. And um, I remember always believing, because I had read it numerous times on Facebook or internet, whatever, that they
Mhm.
had exhumed Brushy. So years back, I believed that had actually happened. Of course, it did not happen. And one of the
Yeah.
reasons why that didn't happen was a man named Roy Rumsey, who was the mayor of Hopkins County, Texas at the time. And he literally said, it's a quote, it's in a newspaper article from a post that I had done, like it was like a 5 or 6 piece thing. So I could easily find it, the date, everything. And Roy Rumsey and the entire county commission of Hopkins County denied that exhumation. And Roy Rumsey literally quoted, he said, Oliver Roberts was nothing but a storyteller, and most didn't believe a single thing he said.
Wow.
So when the mayor, who grew up in that town, lived the same life as Brushy did practically, knew him well, it's interesting to hear these different anecdotes from people, like they clearly were presented with this whole thing from the Cold West gentleman. And however it actually went down, either way, there is a date, there's documentation. The county commissioners met and they're like, we're not going to let this happen because he's not Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it was. They knew this man. They knew him. Why would they desecrate his grave to prove something they already knew was an absolute lie?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big risk. You're going to desecrate someone's grave and exhume them based on what? Based on what evidence could you say? Oh, because he said Pat Garrett's a liar. He said that Pat Garrett killed somebody else. He killed Billy
Yeah.
Barlow. Well, guess what? Everyone's done that path of research. There is no Billy Barlow. There's none.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't exist. And Brushy was 2 years old in Arkansas in diapers, little cloth diapers with pin needles. Okay. That's what they had then. Anyway,
Yeah.
James,
I
we
think we
have
wrapped it up.
oh yeah, man, we tore it up. It was a great episode. We covered Mr. W.H. Carr, and next week we're gonna do a little bit of a
It
switcheroo.
let
You are
me
going to
let's
present something to us that you have been
I would like
researching,
to.
and yeah, you've been
Let's
sharing some of it with me. It's very interesting.
poll the audience real quick. I need your guys' feedback because we've talked about Brushy here and how much time is spent. I am gonna do this whether it's next Thursday or if it's just a standalone pre-recorded, but I want to talk about a Jesse James imposter, and I want to go through his life
Mhm.
and I think there's some curious and interesting tidbits that will inform people, inform them as it applies to later imposters and this whole thing. If you guys think it's a good idea to talk about on our Old Time Radio Hour, then let me know. It's just it will be a one episode next Thursday devoted to an old man who claimed to be Jesse James, who was not J. Frank Dalton, by the way. And that will, of course, inform later episodes that I want to do on J. Frank Dalton, which will be pre-recorded and quite lengthy, probably. But
Sure.
do you
Absolutely.
guys do our listeners want to spend an hour talking about a fraud or not? And that's a valid question, and I'm okay either way. It'll be pre-recorded if not, but if so, I find it a very interesting story, and I think it would be cool to learn about.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Cool.
would love
Yeah.
because I'm practically illiterate when it comes to the world of Jesse James. I know the basics. The basics that someone asked me, when did he die? How did he die? Where did he die? I can answer that. Who killed him? You know what I mean? But little bits and things from his career. But yeah, the big the Minnesota
Yeah. Well,
robbery. So there's lots of stuff, but we got lots of stuff coming up too in the future. We got the episode I'd like to do on Mr. Regulator John Middleton. You've
David
got
just
your
says, I'd rather hear about John Middleton's flying machine.
flying machine.
Yeah, he said where we're going, we don't need roads, right?
Yeah. You also have your Mine Wars in West Virginia
Yeah,
too that
Matewan
you've
and
been
all that
talking
good
about. Yeah, the
stuff.
Mattawan. Yeah, that was very
Um,
interesting. I am going to watch that movie. I found it streaming.
Oh, good.
I didn't want to buy it, outright. I usually don't do that unless I've actually seen
Yeah,
it. So I'm
yeah.
going to watch it because I'm curious. But we got a lot of great things coming up. I also would at some point, I don't know when. Colin, I believed, asked a few weeks ago about Jim Hysaw and
And
the
the Pecos
Pecos
War.
War.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to encounter that as well, Colin. We definitely didn't forget. We're just going to put it on the schedule to go down. And I also think sometime soon we should have an episode where, let's say, we're not presenting research. Like, it'll come up if it comes up, but
Right.
I would like to have like a straight up hour where as many live people are available and are here. We strictly talk. Like, I really want to know. I want to have like an hour long thing strictly about the kid and Garrett and why, based on everything that we have learned and what we know, why they think of Billy the way they think of Billy. Why do they think of Pat the way that they do? And as long as people are being honest, I think it'll be a very interesting thing. It can be based on information that you've read. And if someone goes, well, I read a book that came out in 1984 or blah, 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 whatever, an article, and it stated that Pat Garrett's great granddaughter said that everyone knew that he didn't
Right.
kill Billy, right? I mean, anything that you've come across that you have read, and maybe you're speculative, you're just like, I don't know. I would like to converse it with some other people. Maybe they have come across something that either supports or completely debunks this,
Let's
this
do it.
statement. Yeah, anything. But I've always wanted to know, past the aggressive comments of Pat's a drunk and a gambler and whatever else. And like I've always said, okay, even if he was, it doesn't negate the fact that he killed the kid on July 14th, technically the 15th,
Right.
1881. I don't understand what that has to do with anything, but they'll use it as a defense. So I just would like explanations, not
Yeah.
aggressive comments going, I just think Garrett's a POS. Great. Tell me why. Where's
Yeah.
the follow up? I thought it would be interesting because I also I feel and I think that if we approach it that way, I think we're also not going to get as many people as we probably feel are going to be that supportive of the kid as well. I think there are a lot of people out there that acknowledge what what he was and what he was doing at that time. And yes, there's the whole, oh, John Tunstall, and he was battling against them, and it just seems like they were the right guys. Well, that's not necessarily true. John Tunstall and Alex McSween were up to some pretty shady type stuff.
I think
And
we
it's
should
not
have
a
just
yeah,
an open convo about all this stuff, and
sure.
even a larger convo about the how we view the kid and why, and that'd be a great just open forum live convo. And yeah,
Yeah.
let's put that on the calendar. And David King says about High Saw, would love to compare notes before you do that one. David, if you know a lot about High Saw and want to, we'd love to start having guests on too at certain points. You want to come
Yeah.
on and talk about High Saw? We'll have a discussion, and we want to have folks on to share their knowledge too, and maybe in areas that we haven't had the time or opportunity to read up on. So yeah,
Yeah.
um, I'm
Absolutely.
I'm talking to this girl in England, Michelle, who knows a lot about Jesse James, and I'm like, please come on the show sometime. Let's talk it out.
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be great. And also, you talked about a couple weeks ago, you mentioned Daniel Rodriguez.
yes, the Alamo
Yeah.
show. Yep, that's on the
Yeah.
books. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk to Daniel too and get that set up. But we've got some great stuff coming. And as always, I don't say it enough. I appreciate everyone who jumps in, and we do our thing and we talk back and forth. And that's the whole point of the live, is that we are reading these. Anybody who has any questions, James will
yeah,
spot it. I try to spot it. Just ask. If anybody, as long as it's a pleasant conversation, if you want to message me individually
yes,
and you have a question, not an accusation or whatever else. If you have a question about these episodes we've done on Swain or Deputy Marshal Carr or any of the ones in the future, if you're curious about sources, if you're curious about sources for photos,
yeah,
anything, you know, and that's why I try to mention things like that photo of Brushy's family for those who have not seen that. And they're like, whoa, that's very interesting. And that's very telling to the whole timeline. That's why I mentioned where that photo can be found, what book it can be found, and who it was written by. You know what I mean? Instead of
yeah.
just going, yeah, I just found this picture on the internet. No, you
Well,
need to know these things. It's important.
that's another thing too. If any of these subjects that we do interests anyone particularly, and they want more, um, every episode we do, I take copious notes, and I transcribe articles and stuff. So if anybody wants, like, this William Carr episode, if you want me to email you the notes I've taken, I have like 4 different files, that I can convert to PDF and send you with sources and timelines and notes. I've
Yeah,
got
same here.
I ran into a Bill Carr who ended up getting entangled in the Fountain murders, and I ran
Yeah.
into, Bill Carr, who was a deputy, or who was a deputy marshal in Oklahoma in the same area after our Bill Carr fled, and
Mhm.
and this other Bill Carr was part of the Crazy Snake Rebellion and
Yeah. That
everything
book you
else.
bought. Yeah.
Yes, so I had to determine that both of those guys weren't our Bill Carrs, so I have notes on them. I have,
Mhm.
and I can send people all of our notes if they're interested, if you wanna learn more. So that's
Yeah.
also something I'd be willing to do. But yeah, let's do all
Absolutely.
that. Let's do the open forum. Let's do all this. But we're clocking in at like an hour and 40 minutes at this point, but I don't mind it.
Absolutely. No, I've been watching the time
Yeah.
and going, well, who cares? People
Yeah.
are still listening. They're still listening. We've never gone this far.
This is
So,
radio. This is radio,
yeah.
man.
Well, and that's the difference between like the live video, right? Yeah. You just kind of start talking and you start going down the path. But I like that throughout this entire episode, we covered so much history,
Yeah.
so much history. And I'm hoping if anyone just happened to listen to part 2 of Deputy Marshal W.H. Carr, and at the end there, that last, 10, 15 minutes, and you heard a switch to Brushy and the Billy situation, Brushy stating that he used an alias. Well, we're also showing you this, right? Look how many other W.H. Cars or William Cars there were. It was a pretty
So
common
many.
name. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not, okay, and again, you could take it as, okay, so then maybe Brushy meant he was a different W.H. Carr. Well, no, he
Well,
said
that's
specifically
where it
Judge
shifts,
Isaac
right?
Parker. Right.
Yeah. That's
Exactly.
where it
So,
shifts.
yeah. And again, so if I were to say that, I present this, they'd be like, no, no, no. He meant the other Carr. Right. And I
Right,
feel that's
exactly.
probably what's going to happen. But again, please prove it. If you can debate somehow that he was not born in 1879 with legit documentation. There's one thing I forgot to mention. I did send it to you. We're pretty much way over time. But there's also Geneva Pittman, the daughter of
Yes.
Thomas Roberts, Brushy's brother.
Hmm. And
Okay.
Tom was the brother of Brushy who would, Brushy would get himself entangled up in his tales and kind of become a pariah of a small town or something, or if he just needed help, Tom was the brother who would come get him. Tom
Yeah.
was his big brother who watched over Brushy.
Yeah. Well, Geneva, we've had this floating around for many years. I've had the copy of it. So she also sent it to many newspaper articles. You can find it throughout the 1980s in New Mexico articles when the brushing thing starts really getting turned on its head and everyone is really bringing it up. I think Young Guns is a big, reason for that. There's lots of articles. I found at least 6 over the years about Geneva Pittman, her turning in the family Bible to many of these newspaper articles, and it was printed in a couple of them. Okay. But I sent you that thing. She wrote a letter in December of 1987 to Joe Bolin. If you don't know who Joe Bolin is, I'm not going to go down that path. He's well known. His name is well known, especially connected to New Mexico. You can easily find out about him, but he's one of the first guys that had one of Billy the Kid Museum. And she wrote a letter to Joe Bolin because Bolin was doing a lot of things. He had a museum. He had some artifacts that may or may not have been, questionable to the actual timeline and if they were real or not. But a lot of people visited that museum when it was around, and he was a well-known man, very well-known. Joe Bolin comes up a lot in the 1950s, 60s. And so she writes a letter. And I remember I've sent it to you. I've seen it numerous times. And she literally states, the reason, Mr. Bolin, the reason why you cannot find any information on, my uncle is because you have the name wrong. That's the best part, is her giving what his real name is, followed by his birth date, and the sentence very clear, my uncle was not Billy the Kid. I don't know what else people, again, she got called a liar too. So I don't know what to do. I also heard the family Bible wasn't real. She made it up.
Yeah, I've heard
she
that
wrote
too.
It.
Yeah,
She wrote
the
it,
wrong
in
family
herself.
Bible. Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Well, so, Rollins says that Tom was about 5 years younger than Brushy, and I believe I might have said older brother. Roland,
yeah.
That's the last time you're going to correct me on live radio, buddy. Okay, what I say, what I say goes. All right. My word is, but yeah, 1900 federal census. Thomas Roberts is 14.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Oliver is 20. Thomas Ulysses Roberts, I believe, was his middle name. His brother Irvin got shot and killed later in life.
Really?
I believe. Yeah, he was killed in Texas, I believe. I have it all. I mean, also, if anybody wants copies, I have a file that I call my Brushy scrapbook. And I just, anything I find on Brushy, I put it in there for further research. And it's 226 pages right now in Google Docs. But I'd be happy to send anyone who's researching Brushy all that I have on it. And maybe we could put our heads together and find
absolutely more. I also, same thing. If anyone is interested, other than the photos and documentation, I also have very specifically, his draft registration card with his information, his birth date that he put, and of course his signature as Oliver Roberts.
Yeah.
So, again, his signature is on many things. And, when you have the draft registration, this guy had no problem lying about his age the rest of his life once he decided to make this turn as an imposter and be Billy the Kid. He had all this time to keep switching, oh, no, I was born this year. Oh, and then when someone would discover something else up, they would change it again. But even old Brushy wasn't going to lie on a federal document.
Right.
That's what's funny to me. I thought he was a big bad outlaw.
Right.
No, I'm not going to lie on this document. I'm going to put my real full name and my birth date. So again, it's just one of those things. I guess you could go and just choose what you choose to believe. Great. Where the angle comes in is that some of us, like us, kid history is very important. We wouldn't have put in so much time and effort into it if we didn't really care, right? This isn't something I got. Right. My library of books doesn't keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the years because I can't stand it. or because, nope, I'm looking for that one detail that proves this one thing that we haven't been able to prove, like what really happened on that stairwell in the courthouse between him and Bell. I've always wanted to know. We all
Right.
want to know, because there's this belief that it was a badass plan, or this was this, and I don't think so at all. I think it was just fly off the seat of his pants, and here's what's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then he's either going to die, or, I mean, I think it was just quick. And I also think it was filled with a lot of luck. That's what I
Mhm.
think. Not like he
Yeah.
was some 6'5" guy that could, that could box and could wrestle and was this amazing gunsmith and whatever. You know what I mean? But everything Billy had done up until that point was minuscule. Minuscule. That escape and those two murders. Sorry, you don't have to like Bob Ollinger or Bell to know what it is. And for those that go, well, what was Billy going to do? I agree. I agree. He's almost a 21-year-old outlaw who has,
Mhm.
just been
Yeah, I mean,
found
if it
guilty of killing one sheriff. He then kills two more deputies who were both deputy U.S. Marshals, and that documentation exists. They were deputy U.S. Marshals. So again, I would say he's going to hang, right? He had less than 2 weeks before he hung. And
yeah.
so I get it. I get it when you go, well, what choice did he have? That part I understand. That part I can agree with. In his mindset, what was he going to do? He didn't want to die. He wanted to see his girlfriend again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He wanted to live his life. He wanted to go and hang out with his friends. I think that's really his mind was. His mind was never set to leaving the territory. Not once. I don't think he ever even considered it. I don't. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think even when he killed Bell and Ollinger, it wasn't probably ringing into him what he had just done. I don't think his mindset was like that. That's just me personally. Everything I've believed, all of his misdirections and stuff, I just don't think that's him. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, 5, 6 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that at all. I believed a lot of the legend. And then when you really start to break it down, you kind of wonder, man, how did this outlaw, this name become so synonymous with fame when, you know what I mean? It's a real narrow section of what he actually did compared to what they said he did, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got him in places all over the country when he was literally locked up in Santa Fe. No, I got a story that Billy came to my house, and what was the date? Oh, well, that's interesting because he was there, or he was here. He was involved in Lincoln County War. It's weird when they give dates, especially, and they tell stories about Billy, and you're like, okay. But then there's the stuff that we 100% know. Like, we know where he was during this time because of the events that all follow and can be corroborated by different witness statements, especially like Tunstall's killing and everything else. I'm glad I've never heard anyone come up with something like a crazy theory like the regulators killed Tunstall or something like that. Like, honestly, I've always been surprised that I didn't hear something like that, because
Well,
you just hear all kinds of stuff.
I
But
think a
even when
big part
there's
too of all these stories is the fact that Billy the Kid was immediately, like, overlapping the time of his death. There were so
yeah,
many Billy the Kids.
yeah, something that we have encountered, we've discussed. I mean, dude, there were so many. Were Billy the kids. There were so many. There were so many who were just called Kid. Some spelled
Right.
it Kidd. Some spelled it Kid. I mean, yes, if you really want to go down that path, take the time and the effort, and it's long, but you'll sit there and probably be, jaw just drop when you find out just how many outlaws slash criminals of that era went by Billy the Kid.
Yeah, I've compiled quite a list, but it's by no means complete, but I mean,
Yeah. I mean, look at that.
when you see how many there were, it's like, "Oh my goodness." So when
Hmm.
somebody in, like, Oklahoma or Louisiana says, like, "I knew Billy the Kid," it's like, "Of
Yep.
course you did. You knew one of these guys."
Yes,
Yeah.
I've thought the same thing. Like, what are the
Yeah.
possibilities? It was just another Billy the Kid, and no one knew the difference. Yeah, and you have to think that way after when you hear the stories of what they'll say, and then the location and the time, and you're
Mhm.
like, wait, what? So, I mean, I get it. I get it. There are those that believe, hey, it comes down to our opinion because no one knows what happened. No one was there. I
Yeah.
have never put any stock into that answer. I honestly think it's a very I don't know. I don't know how to put it. I don't know if it's a spineless answer or what, but I do feel like that's just someone or that group of people who say that is because they don't want to believe anything that is presented if it's gonna, you know, disregard anything that they've already said that they believe. And we've encountered that before, and you've mentioned it, and it sucks. I do get the approach, but like we've been saying, it can't come down to someone just going, "Oh, again, what did you say? Goalpost shifting," right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The story changes because there's documentation that completely eliminates what you said previously. Oh, okay.
That's right.
Well, that's not what we said. Here's what we actually said, right? And then they change it again, and it's all to
Yeah.
either kind of make you either really question yourself or question your goals of what you're doing. I'm not sure. All I know, man, is that it's time to go eat dinner. I know that.
Amen.
Amen.
Yep. I believe it is time to conclude our weekly episode. This has been a fun one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so next week we'll do the imposter. Uh, I'll start getting some info out about that, and we'll keep at it. I seem to have more fun every time we do this.
Absolutely. It's growing on me every single week. When we have to
Yep,
reschedule, man, it sucks because I'm like, oh man, I had this ready, but we do know life happens to both of us and it's what happens. But that's why I'm glad we do it once a week. For guys that are doing podcasts, like these guys are doing like 5 days a week or something. I'm like, man, how do you keep up with that? It's just too much.
for real. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well,
all right, we will see everyone next week. Any questions about these episodes we've been covering? Like we've said, reach out, let us know what you're thinking. If there's anything else that you're interested in us talking about, discussing, I'd say we've got another good 3 or 4 or 5 episodes down the path
oh
of
yeah,
all the ones that people have
absolutely.
already requested. Yeah. So I think we're going to be good for a while. We're going to cover a lot of stuff.
All right, Iowa Joe, I see your message, man. I'll shoot you a text. Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.